When you were born, there was something in you, like as a child, you knew that you were born to be amazing. Children, they want to be the beautiful princess, Spider-Man, Superman, they want to be somebody awesome. And I'd propose to you that it takes about 12 years of religion to convince you that being a loser is somehow spiritual. Because when you were little, you knew that you were born to be amazing.
Hey, get me soda pronto.
Yeah, okay, I will.
And a snack pronto.
Okay.
Is that you?
Mm-hmm.
You're so pretty.
Thanks. I am a celebrity. I'm a celebrity because I am the best celebrity.
I've been all over the world, Africa. I've been all over the world, and every child, even in the bush of Africa, in the poorest places of Africa, I say, what do you want to be? And they say, I want to be a prophet. I want to be a mayor. I want to be a princess. I want to be an actress.
I am a celebrity. I'm a celebrity because I am the best celebrity.
How many of you understand when you were a child, you knew that you were born to be amazing? There's something about connecting with Jesus. How many of you know that when you see him, you become like him because you were made in his image and his likeness? Uh-oh, be careful. In fact, Paul said that when we see Jesus, it's like looking in a mirror. John said that we're going from glory to glory when we see Jesus. There's something about Jesus, you know. You know, when the disciples, every time, Jesus had 12 disciples, do you know that? Do you remember that every time Jesus got about 30 yards from them, do you remember what they argued about? Who's the greatest? Can you imagine getting 12 friends together and you leave them alone in the room? And you leave them alone in the room? Do you think all 12 of them would be arguing over who's the greatest? Maybe a couple, you know, really dominant personalities. But the Bible says that all of Jesus' disciples argued about who's the greatest. In fact, the argument got so bad one time. Do you remember that Peter and John James and John got their mother involved? And James and John's mother says to Jesus one day, Jesus, grant me one wish. What is it? That my sons will sit at your left and right hand in the kingdom. Do you remember that story? And the Bible says that the rest of the disciples were indignant. You know why they're indignant? Because they didn't think about getting their mother involved. Do you know that the Gospel of John is the only gospel that calls John the disciple whom Jesus loved? All three gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, call him John. But when John wrote the gospel, his own gospel, he wrote, and the disciple whom Jesus loved. Do you know the Gospel of John is the only gospel that tells you that when Peter and John ran to the tomb, who got there first? John chapter 20, and Peter and John ran to the tomb, and John got there first. I wrote in my margin, and who cares? And John's the guy that said, if all the miracles that Jesus did were written down, The earth itself could not contain the books. So John's only writing things he thinks are important, and he writes, and John got there first. Now, I understand that this is a little subjective. But I really doubt that those disciples, before they met Jesus, argued about who's the greatest. What I'm getting at is this. There's something about hanging around Jesus. Here we go. There's something about hanging around Jesus that causes you to realize that you were born to be amazing.